Hi, everyone. Welcome to the next round of breakout sessions for our LendFest News Philanthropy Network Summit. I'm Rebecca Foreman, the Director of Advancement for the LendFest Institute, and we are so glad you're here at this session and hope you've been enjoying the programming over the past day and a half and into tomorrow. Today, we are joined by Lauren Gustus, the Executive Editor, and Jessica Sweeney, the Development Director, both of the Salt Lake Tribune, for our session, One-ish Year Later, What We Learned as We Became a Nonprofit. And they're going to say hello really quickly, and then we're going to move into actually a recording of the two of them talking. But then we'll go back, they're here, and we'll be in the chat, and then we'll go back to a live Q&A. I will also drop a Google Doc in the chat where we can share resources. So anything that comes up, links or sort of particular things that folks may want to reference back to, we'll add into the Google Doc. You can all also feel free to add into that Google Doc. It's definitely intended to be collaborative, but wanted to welcome you and thank you all so much for being here. Lauren?
Great. Thanks, Rebecca. Thanks, everybody, for joining. We're so looking forward to the Q&A after. I can't say that we're looking forward to hearing ourselves or seeing ourselves on video. Nobody does, right? Unless you're in TV, I suppose, maybe then you do. The reason we pre-recorded is because Jessica, who is my partner in this effort, is expecting. And we are so excited for her. And she could leave us any day now. So we wanted to be prepared. And so thank you for your understanding as we move through the process.
Hi, everyone, I'm Jessica. And yeah, I will have my blinders on during the recording, but happy to answer questions after.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lauren and Jessica. Just bear with me for a moment while I get our video up.
Hi, my name is Lauren Gustus. I'm the editor at the Salt Lake Tribune, and I am joined by Jessica Sweeney, who is our development director. We are thrilled to be here with you and to humbly share our story, which does include a few storm clouds, as you can see in the photo that we've chosen here, but also a little bit of rainbow. So I'm eager to dive in and to spend some time with you in this session. If you have questions, please share them. We welcome them. We don't presume that everything that we say makes sense. And so welcome, that feedback and that interactivity. And we look forward to answering those questions. I think at the end of the session or at the end of the presentation is how we'll progress it. So everyone's journey is different, right? We are all in different places with respect to our evolution and where we would like to go and with respect to achieving our goals. And we don't presume that we have all the answers, but the Tribune story is pretty remarkable. The Tribune story is why I am here. I've been at the Tribune for a year. It's a bit of a homecoming for me. I used to be a sports reporter for the Salt Lake Tribune, and I covered the Utes, who you saw on the previous screen. And I was in California and working for McClatchy and leading, a region that included 10 news organizations. And I came back to the Tribune because of what it is trying to do. And because there is such an opportunity for us to prove that this can work. We are the only major metro to convert to a nonprofit. And there are opportunities for us to learn from our challenges and successes every day. So we'd love to share a little bit of that journey with you today. When I meet with people who care about the Salt Lake Tribune, they ask how we're doing. And it's almost as if they brace themselves for bad news, and that's understandable given where we have been as an industry. You all know the reasons why news, and specifically legacy news, has faced all kinds of challenges over the last couple of decades. And we also know that when we lose local news, fewer people vote, communities are less engaged. We know that city budgets rise because nobody is at council meetings checking on bond rates or borrowing proposals. And so you can see, I've just thrown a pretty simple timeline down on the bottom of this slide here But when the Tribune was extracted from Alden in 2016, it marked a major turning point for the organization. And the Huntsman family, Paul Huntsman, purchased the Tribune from Alden Global Capital because he and the family recognized that if you take away a newsroom that's filled with nosy journalists, a state loses its ability to hold those in power to account. And I'm grateful to them for finding a path forward. And then I'm grateful too for the vision that came following, which was, can we convert to a nonprofit, and what would that look like? So Jessica, please, next slide, thanks. We are a 501c3 public charity, and you can see here, I've shared kind of what those inputs look like and what we're using those inputs for. We've been a 501c3 for all of 18 months. We received the notification a heck of a lot sooner than we thought we would, which meant we scrambled a bit to get up and running, and a bunch of people worked really hard to help us make that conversion. And even though we are 150 years old this year, older than the state of Utah, it feels as if we are a startup. We are solving for so many of the major questions, the who are we? What is our mission questions? What does our board do? What doesn't it do? What constitutes a philanthropic contribution? I'll get to that in a second. And how do we get to sustainability? These are all questions that are rooted in, I would say, a startup. And yet, again, we've got this legacy thing that we've been producing that you can see on the right, for 150 years. So I'm eager to share as we move forward, and Jessica will walk through that with us, kind of how we're addressing those big questions, if you will, and what we've learned. This is just a bit of perspective on what the tenor of the conversation was like when the Tribune announced that it would seek an application with the IRS to become a nonprofit. And super grateful for the support from many across the country. We did have the advantage of being first, and there being a bit of novelty to that. And I'd say too, we've mostly been, I don't want to say left alone, that's probably not the right characterization, but we've been busy trying to figure it out. Like many of you, we were in the thick of covering COVID and the dialogue that has emerged in the wake of George Floyd's murder. And yet we are still figuring out how to go from being in the red as a nonprofit to finding sustainability, in the red as a for-profit to finding sustainability as a nonprofit. So it's like you do all the work, and then there's all this meta work that has to happen too, right? So one of the things that we had to focus on first is formation of a board. What do we do by way of guidance, and who is going to join us on this journey? So we built a board initially that included former journalists in the state of Utah. So a former editor of the Tribune and a former reporter at the Tribune were both on the board. We had some, I would say, digital native journalists who are also on the board initially, and they provided great insight into ensuring the editorial integrity of the Tribune, right? We had to set up board guidance documents, and you see some of that board guidance here on the slide on the left. They had to figure out what the cadence of their conversations and meetings look like, what their goals and objectives were. And they did a lot of work to get us to where we are. We needed a gifts policy, right? What won't we accept? What will we accept? That board was 7 people. It was not all that diverse. And it did not necessarily represent the changing nature of the state of Utah, which per the census is the fastest growing state over the course of the last 10 years, despite what Idaho will tell you, it's Utah. And so we look to diversify our board after we moved through kind of that first introductory period or year as a board. We've expanded, we're 11 members. Oh,
Sorry.
not quite
Yeah.
yet. Thanks, Jessica. And we're very happy with those who are bringing perspectives that should be elevated to our leadership team. This is Jorge on the right. He's a relatively new board member who emigrated to the United States from Mexico and didn't speak a word of English when he got here. He now has a successful local business selling beans and many other things. And he loves to talk about both his community and what he has learned as a business owner here in Salt Lake. He's in grocery stores, but he's also at the farmer's market every Saturday morning himself, selling his product. He has deep ties to the community, and that's been helpful for us. One of the other places where we've really asked our board to think strategically is as we build out the structures and expectations that come in doing the early work, having just formed. How do we think strategically about the philanthropic mission and strategy that the board can support us in pursuing? So, how are we organizing around long-term giving? Is there an opportunity to endow a reporting position, and what reporting position is so important to us and to those in the community that we would look to endow it? So it's taken a good long while, as one would expect. It's been a natural process, but we now have a better blend of journalism, folks who represent the community, and those who can go out and understand where there may be opportunity to ask for support in the fundraising sphere or specter, and that's been important to us. Okay.
Oh, and a gift. There we go.
This is where my head starts to spin, so forgive me. You can see on the left a draft that was prepared for us, one of many at our request, as we looked at our responsibility as a nonprofit in the eyes of the IRS, right? So again, we're the first major metro to make this conversion. That means we brought with us to the nonprofit a subscriber base. Huge, tremendous advantage, right? As you look at who we're trying to reach and how we're trying to grow, and I acknowledge that. And when we started the process, we weren't sure if a subscription was a donation, if it counted as a philanthropic contribution, if it didn't. We don't have a playbook. No one has done this before. So we spent a lot of time over the course of the last, I would say, 4 to 5 to 6 months, engaged in conversations around how we can responsibly move forward as a nonprofit in the eyes of the IRS. And there are 2 benchmarks that we have to hit. And they are, I call them the 1/3 benchmarks, in that as a nonprofit, no more than 1/3 of our revenue can come from unrelated business income. For us, that's principally advertising. And at least 1/3 of our revenue must be in the charitable contributions bucket. So there's a ceiling, right? No more than 1/3, and there's a basement, at least 1/3. We've spent the better part of the year making sure that we have the right balance and the right blend. This is important because we're going to set a precedent when we file our first returns as a sustainable organization. We filed one set of returns, but we lost money in 2020. So the ceiling and the basement considerations were moot. But we had to do this work. It's important work, even though the public doesn't see it. No one is aware of the time and the effort and the energy and the resource that we're applying to this. But as a nonprofit, we have to demonstrate in the view of the IRS that the public sees enough value in what we do that it will support our work moving forward. We have until 2024 to get to the ceiling and the basement. As a new nonprofit, the IRS gives us 5 years to get to that point in which it will begin to take a look at where we're at. And that's when, you know, I would say things get real, in that if we don't meet those standards, we can lose our status as a 501c3. For what it's worth, subscriptions, in the view of the IRS, as interpreted by those who have worked on this effort for us, are a charitable contribution, not necessarily deductible in full, but they are a charitable contribution, and it counts toward that charitable contribution. Jessica is going to share with us in just a minute here what constitutes each kind of contribution that we're looking at. But if you all have further questions or thoughts around the 1/3 basement or ceiling, or if we can share our memos with you, we'd be happy to do that. And I'm sure we'll figure out a way in chat and messages and Google Docs and so on and so forth. Jessica, welcome to the conversation. Love to see if you can walk us through what we're looking at here and how we organize ourselves so that both our newsroom and our board understood where we were trying to go with respect to charitable contributions and unrelated business income and so on and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Lauren. Again, I'm Jessica Sweeney, and I'm the development director at the Tribune. So I've only been here for about 6 months, just hit my 6 months. So much like the Tribune, I'm new in this model. And so I come from a political giving background. So this has been really exciting. I grew up my parents reading the Tribune, and that was my paper. And so I'm excited to be able to work for this important institution in our community. So, you know, and much like Lauren was saying, a big part of what I've been helping work on is making sure that money that we have coming in is very clearly put into 3 different buckets, because we are striving to hit that 1/3 threshold with these gifts. And we, you know, this year, we want to try to be hitting that goal with the IRS this year, and we have till 2024, but the more practice we can get in, and the, you know, being within the guidelines is really important for us. So charitable contributions is the big one that I obviously work in, but is very important for us. The more charitable contributions we have too, you know, the more support we show within our community, which is a really important thing for us. So one-time donations, recurring donations, any of the giving that you would normally think of a nonprofit is kind of how we've bucketed our charitable contributions. And in the middle, the income related, but not necessarily all tax deductible for folks, is kind of what you see here. So our subscriptions, and we're going to talk a little bit about supporting subscriptions on the next slide, but some of our merchandise, we've been experimenting with Patreon, which has been really cool. And then events, which unfortunately with COVID has really been, we haven't been able to dive in yet as much as we'd like to, but we're hoping come next year, fingers crossed for everybody on this Zoom, things get better there. And then advertising sales, branded content, and other concessions and events. Those are business income, that's ad side, and that's kind of our threshold for how much charitable contributions we need to have and make sure those are in line with each other. This is kind of where I think a lot in this group can learn from too, and where we're definitely learning and growing and setting precedents. Supporting subscribers is a really unique model, especially for nonprofits. As Lauren mentioned, we came in with a bunch of subscribers already, which we're grateful for. And what we've been learning, and as you fundraise, you think of it as a big funnel, but getting folks in the door who are already supporting you and are already subscribing, and asking them for just a little bit more every month, where they don't have to think about it, where it's automatic, and they can still, you know, be supporting you a little bit more than just a subscription, has been our model for supporting subscribers. So this is really great. We can plan that. Guess usually we ask folks to do, you know, make a commitment for a year, and they set it up for a month or even longer. And so we're able to plan out those charitable contributions coming in.
And Jessica, would you tell folks, you know, that $150 per year, how does that differ from what we would ask people to pay for a digital subscription? Just a plain
Yeah.
old digital subscription?
Yeah, absolutely. So our digital subscription right now without any specials is $79 a month. Is that right? $79.99 a month. And so it's about $70 a year in addition to that subscription is a donation to the Tribune. So, and that's $5 a month, which is great. And it's just, they automatically pull it from their account. And that, you know, 80 or that $70 is, that portion of it is tax deductible. So they'll get a tax letter letting them know they made a contribution. They can write it off on their taxes, which we find for a lot of folks is great. And for a lot of folks, they don't really do it for the tax break. They do it because they want to support it, which is cool. It's cool to see that. And we've been trying to set up our supporting subscriber program. Again, with COVID, it's been a little bit hard, but we try to recognize them with a special pin from our Pat Bagley cartoonist. We will do special in-depth Zooms with some of our reporting for our supporting subscribers. And then our First Amendment Society is kind of the next step above that. So we're asking for a 3-year commitment of at least $1,000 a year to be part of our First Amendment Society. We have 4 different tiers. And this is really great because we can plan on this multi-year gift, which for a nonprofit is really important. You can't always plan on gifts. You can't always know if you're getting a grant or even when grants are going to open. So to set up this kind of pipeline with your donors is really great for us. And it's great for those who want to support you. We, you know, again, COVID's been hard. This summer, we had an opportunity to kind of set up a monthly coffee for a few months before things shut down again. And I can just tell you from my experience, we invited our First Amendment Society folks to bring friends or to just come and meet us. And we got several new members from that. And we also had several of our $1,000 level members jump up to $5,000 or $10,000. So just getting to be part of the community is why this program is really great for us. It's a vehicle for larger gifts and for people to feel engaged. Next month, we're inviting our First Amendment Society folks to join a news planning meeting in the morning and kind of, you know, see how the sausage is made. And we're excited, you know, about that. We preview some of our upcoming content with our First Amendment Society folks. And so I would, if you're new to this, or even if you've been doing this for a little while, I would say these donor programs that allow like a membership type program it's really important for us. And I think you would see a lot of success doing that. And again, if you have any questions about these programs, we'd love to share. I've already reached out to LendFest several times for their input on these kind of programs and fundraising. And so, you know, we love to make friends. We love to share ideas. So please reach out.
That's great. Thanks, Jessica. So all of the work that Jessica and her team do support the journalism, right? Which is awesome. And my favorite part of any conversation. So we were in a pretty dark place this time last year. COVID was still running strong. We had a relationship with a JOA such that we were not selling our own ads or our own newspapers, which meant that there wasn't really as much investment perhaps as one would hope in that process. And we were printing the paper 7 days a week. We are now selling our own advertising and our own subscriptions, and we are printing only 1 day a week. Those changes combined with what we've done in the nonprofit space and building support for the work we do, and also critically, you know, helping everyone in our organization understand what communities want from us by asking each reporter and each editor to do the listening that comes with discovering those learnings, have resulted in some pretty good outcomes for us by way of where we are and sustainability. It's allowed us to build our team. We're 23% larger, if I did my math right, and someone will check me, than we were a year ago. We've welcomed a 3-person innovation lab that's focused on solutions reporting. That's fully funded over the course of this last year. We've welcomed the West Side reporter to focus on some of the underserved communities that are growing very fast, but that we have not engaged in a long time. in Salt Lake. And we've also added a second Southern Utah reporter because people cannot get enough news about Southern Utah and all the great places we have to go visit down there. We've also added to our digital team and our editing ranks. In 2022, we're going to do more solutions-oriented journalism. We're going to bolster our land and water use reporting. We're going to add video capability, which we don't have. I know, painful. And we've got to amp up on the product side. We are a single incumbent. We are a standalone, so everything we do is built in-house and by us. And we really need to focus on user experience as we look ahead to 2022 and beyond. So with that, if we move on to the next slide, just showing you where we're at by way of digital only subscriber growth, which some of these subscribers, right, are supporting subscribers, about 6,500 of them are, which is great. And you can see, you know, we've got goal in orange and actual in gray. We're right on our path to reach 25,000 digital only subscribers by year's end. We were late to the paywall, I would say, in Salt Lake, and that's probably due to all the other structural changes that we engaged in, right? And we also make a good bit of our reporting available to anyone who wishes to publish it through something we call the Utah News Collaborative, which we formed this year, right? As a nonprofit, our mission is to get as much news and information to as many people as possible. And so the Utah News Collaborative allows any organization, we have members from St. George to Moab to all the way up in Logan, Utah, to republish our reporting, either on their sites or in their printed products. So that's an important consideration, even as we continue to calibrate toward digital only subscriber growth. And then just thought I'd share this slice of the pie, so to speak, or the whole pie with several slices. So you can see where we are with respect to our journey. We still have a significant presence in the advertising space. Subscriptions, as you can see there, are a very healthy and critical component for us and a growth opportunity. And philanthropy is as well, given the relatively young nature of our nonprofit news organization. But with this mix, we are sustainable. We've got to take a look at where, again, we can continue to invest in our people, in our readers, in our future readers, and that's in the philanthropy and subscription space principally. Okay, so this is it. This is the last slide for us. And you know, if you've got some thoughts on our big questions, more than welcome your perspective. But you know, moving from 7 to 1 was a significant cost savings for us, and we weathered that by way of a subscriber base, and we have a tremendous loyalty now to our daily e-edition. Moving out of the JOA, enabling us to sell our own newspapers and ads was a win, and focusing on the communities that we seek to serve and what they want from us was also important. We've got some big questions to answer. I believe that structurally, everyone is challenged, right? But the crisis for local news is not about hedge fund ownership or pension liability or debt load. It is about how we choose to engage in relationships with the people we serve. And we must meet the moment because, as we know, print has a limited shelf life. I would submit that websites have a limited shelf life. So if we are not evolving with our audiences and if we are not relevant, we will not be successful. Doing the hard work of figuring out what people want and how we can serve them by pulling different levers is going to be critical. We still have a lot of learning left to do, but we have a runway and we're going to make the most of it. We want to prove that this experiment can work long term. Hi, my name is Lauren Gustus. I'm the editor of the Salt.
Once is probably enough, huh?
Yes, sorry about that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lauren and Jessica. We're happy to also have you live and on the screen. So I'm going to spotlight the two of you. So you should show up for everyone, but also please feel free to, raise your virtual hand or put a question in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. I know there's a few in there already.
Okay, great, sure. So we can start at the top. Rebecca asked what the donor and subscriber reaction was to the print reduction and how we managed that. We had no choice. We had to take our print to a new facility, because when we left the JOA with the Deseret News, which we were in for 62 years, they closed the printing presses. So we went to print down in Vegas, and the powers that be at the time, which was the board, decided to just rip the Band-Aid off, and we would go from 7 days a week to 1 weekend paper. And we did a lot of outreach ahead of time. The board called donors, significant donors, and let them know ahead of time, such that, you know, we could continue to ask for their support and explain why we were doing what we were doing. And then we also did a fair bit of outreach with our subscribers, tried our best to prepare them for the changes that were coming, but nothing prepared us for the day that we flipped the switch. And I will say, we are a small organization. We don't have unlimited customer service resources, and it was all hands on deck. Everyone was answering the phone. Everyone was, for better or worse, a tech person, which we weren't. So we were trying to help people figure out their Apple passwords so that they could log in to their devices so that they could see the e-edition on their iPads or on their phones, or you name it, right? So just as by way of a data point, we went from 29% of our readers being logged into the sltrib.com ecosystem to 75% of our readers being logged in the space of about 2 weeks. So we took thousands and thousands and thousands of calls. We did offer, and we still do offer, a 7-day-a-week e-edition, and that has become people's newspaper. 1 day last month, our vendor failed to send out the e-edition. And again, call center was swamped, right, as you would imagine. And everybody was saying, "Where's my paper?" And I had to laugh because there is no paper on Wednesday, right, or whatever day it was. It was the e-edition that they were missing. So we did some outreach. We did, not prepare effectively enough for the volume of tech support that our readers would need. And I can't emphasize that enough if you are considering making this kinds of transition. And I would say, lastly, do the math. We were leaving a JOA and we had no visibility into with all sincerity, profitability of print. And so when we made the decision to move from 7 to 1, I should say no, probably very little, we didn't necessarily know what that was going to mean. We had done the math with respect to what we were going to offer the printed product at as we emerged from the JOA. And we thought that if we held on to X amount of people, we would be okay. And our projections were pretty much right on pace. We did lose print subscribers. We lost a fair bit of print subscribers, but we planned for that and we knew that we would lose them. And as you saw in the slides, our digital only subscriber growth has been substantial. Yes, a digital only subscriber is not as valuable as a print subscriber, but there is value there, and there's long-term value there. And there's more value, I would submit, as a nonprofit, because we're able to mature those relationships and hopefully move people who are digital only subscribers to a more meaningful relationship as a member, as a First Amendment Society donor, something like that, you name it. So I don't know if that answers the question, but I would say some considerations with respect to how we made the transition from 7 days a week to 1. Happy to talk more about it. I think that you hear so often, I would say, from your print readers, and you think that they might represent everybody, but it's been 10 months for us since we made the transition, and it seems like a long time ago. There is a future on the other side of print, and we are living it, and it's just fine. Let's see. Question, Tracy asks, are there federal efforts you are part of to get advertising to be seen as nonprofit news, so not higher taxes UBI? If you do have over 1/3 UBI, is it just taxed higher, right? Or what happens? Okay, super good question. We're part of no federal efforts. The effort that we are trying to engage in is meticulous documentation, such that if others want to go down the road, we can share our playbook with them. So here's, how we classified this type of revenue. Here's how we classified this type of revenue. And, as you look at where you're going, we can provide a playbook that essentially the IRS has accepted, we hope, with respect to when we file our taxes, right? As a nonprofit, do we get questions or do we not? So we're looking to create that through, I guess, lived experience, if you will, right, is some degree of precedent for subscriptions counting as a donation, and so on and so forth. Although, like I said, we've talked to a ton of people, we feel pretty confident in that guidance. We have not submitted a tax return that would be subject to interpretation, acceptance, or rejection from the IRS. If we do have over 1/3 of our revenues coming from unrelated business income, we are at risk of necessitating a change in our status as a nonprofit. We'd still be a nonprofit, we would not be a 501c3. So we have 1 year. So by 2024, we got to demonstrate that we're meeting both the baseline and the ceiling, and we feel good about our status right now. If we get to 2024 or 2025 or 2026, and we have more revenue in that bucket than we should, then we'll be on essentially the watch list for a year. And if it happens again, we are no longer a 501c3. If we come off of that watch list and 1/3 of our revenues fall below, or our revenues fall below 1/3, then we're back to, you know, our normally accepted status as a 501c3. So we're paying close attention to that. I would say it also informs our strategy, right? We got to invest in continuing to grow our subscriber revenue, because for us, that's a critical component. If we grow our subscriber revenue, then the advertising revenue can also grow, right? Because it's built on the ratio. And if Jessica, I missed anything, or if there's follow-ups there, please, because you know, there's ceilings and basements and so on and so forth. Let's see. Oh, here's Jessica. Maybe you can take this one. How do you explain to the First Amendment societies what influence they get to have or not have on your journalism, and do they want that?
So we're very clear with any of our donors that, you know, they don't have any power over our editorial side whatsoever. There is a little bit of a, you know, they have the ability to fund they can direct their funds to certain areas of the newspaper. So if they want their donations to be towards our political reporting team or our, you know, investigative reporting team, we do allow donations to be directed in that way, but we're very clear, and I've never had pushback yet. I think the type of donors we get understand the importance of a free press and an independent newspaper, and so they're not expecting to have this power where they get to dictate you know, what we write about and how we write about it. But we do, and I would encourage you to, there are donors out there who might not think about donating to a newspaper or a news organization, but they're passionate about other things. So in Utah, we have a lot of people passionate about public lands or politics or higher education. And so that's an opening for us to be able to go get a whole new group of donors by letting them know that they can direct their funds to a certain team. And like I said, I haven't being here for 6 months, I've never had anyone come back to me saying, oh, well, why did you write this? We definitely have like made a few big local donors upset by some of the coverage that we needed to do. And so we're still repairing those relationships. And by repairing, I just mean, you know, letting the time pass and then reapproaching them and letting them know why we're an important paper. And I would say most of the folks, even when they get upset with us, once the dust settles, they kind of realize, you know, we had to report the story, and they'll at least talk to us again.
Yeah. And I think having participated in some of those conversations, I mean, I don't apologize for the work that we've done. I acknowledge their perspective and acknowledge that the only reason that there are so many people who are willing to support us via subscription or donation is because they believe in the power of the work we do, right? And the minute that we step away from that for any reason is the minute that we lose all of our credibility, and we cannot and we will not. And I feel very strongly about that. And Jessica is a great partner in that space. Lee asked, what percentage of your subscribers get your digital? So I think and what is our digital strategy? I think I understand that second question. So we have far more digital subscribers than we do print subscribers, and that's in part due to some longstanding stuff that is related to the JOA, and it's in part related to our transition from 7 to 1. Now, we also expect that our digital subscribers will continue to grow and that our print subscribers will continue to fall. Our digital strategy, for the most part, is focused. I'm going to kind of go through 3, if you could, or if you will, topic areas, but then also kind of where I think we need to go in the future. Not 3 topic areas, 3 treatments. Accountability. We live in a state where there's a predominant faith and a predominant political persuasion, and those 2 are connected. And many people believe that the Tribune is a necessary bulwark against those who are in positions of power here in Utah. And it's very, how do I want to say this? I had an editor who told me, to find, all you got to do to find corruption in Utah is to throw a rock and you'll hit it. And so we believe strongly in our ability to do that and our responsibility to that mission. We believe that there's a high utility component that we can provide for readers. So we had a great debate here in Utah about whether Halloween was on Saturday or Sunday. I'm sure that it happened elsewhere, and who would observe it when given school and so on and so forth. And so we polled readers and we had fun with just kind of offering a here's what people are doing by neighborhood type of thing, right? Not hard-hitting journalism, but of tremendous interest to our readers. Right now, like you all, I'm sure we have, lists of where kids 5 through 11 can get a vaccine and how you can kind of help navigate that process as a parent or whomever. So high utility is important. And then breaking with context. Our goal is not to compete with TV. We are looking to do something different. We will tell, in my view, a fuller story. As we look at whatever might come down the pike in that breaking space, how can we be thoughtful about collecting open records, about building a true account of what may have happened as we look at whatever breaking scenario we're talking about. But moving forward, I believe, and I said this earlier, that people will stop taking print and they'll also, in all likelihood, stop coming to websites, right? Very few people come to the Tribune every morning as sltrib.com as a site. They might read the e-edition. That's a ritual for them. But we have to figure out how to build brands that are going to stand across multiple platforms. So we do some accountability and some contextual reporting on the LDS Church here. We do it in a podcast. We do it in a free newsletter. We do it in a paid newsletter. We do it through reporting across multiple platforms. And it is received by people both here in Utah and throughout the country. Now, those folks who don't live in Utah, if you're in Texas or California and you're LDS and you care about what the church is doing, you're probably not going to subscribe to the Tribune. So we've made available a Patreon option such that you could donate to the Tribune if you were so inclined to read more of our LDS reporting, right? And so thinking about how we can offer different chunks of our reporting to different people at different times, and what value adds we might give them. So if you're a Patreon supporter, you get a copy of the podcast transcript every week. Believe it or not, that's kind of a popular feature. It doesn't take any more work for anyone on our team to produce it, but it is of value to Patreon supporters, so we make it available to them. So what are those brands or verticals that you think in your community are going to stand the test of time such that you are relevant, be it on Instagram or in a printed paper or on TikTok or via a newsletter? Sorry, I could talk about that all day and I probably shouldn't. I think there was one question about, Zach asked, what are you doing in terms of ongoing audience engagement to be sure that you're responsive to what the audience wants you to do? And are you doing things like audience panels, or how are you collecting that? Yeah, that's a great question. When I got to the Tribune for the second time, we were just preparing to make all the structural changes that we talked through, leaving the JOA, going from 7 to 1, you name it. And the Tribune had been engaged in a heck of a lot of work to be extracted from a hedge fund and hedge fund ownership, and then to be owned by a very generous family here in Utah, to then being a nonprofit. And so much, in my view, of our strategic thinking went to making those transitions, as one would expect. As we've had the bandwidth and the time to do more listening this year, we have started to do that. And that takes place in a number of different ways. We've started to survey, yes, our readers, and survey them, I would say, by segments. So we've asked everyone who subscribes, but at different points in time and with different mechanisms, what's important to them? What do they think we should do more of? What do they think we should do less of? How do they feel, the reporting is with respect to relevancy to them? So we focus on taking that and then building out lists of now focus groups to have more, I would say, richer, robust conversations with respondents to get at what's important to them in perhaps a more like full or robust way. We've also started to listen in places where we haven't spent time in a long time. So as Jessica mentioned, there are communities that we haven't served for a long time. We've invested reporting resources, full-time reporting resources in these communities, and the reporting starts with listening. Who do we need to talk to? Where should we be? We've hosted some events on the west side of town such that we can better understand what's important to people and better elevate the issues and priorities of communities that we haven't spent some time with. As a nonprofit, I think we have a responsibility to continue to elevate voices that perhaps have not been elevated in a good long while. And that does start with genuinely and deeply listening so that we're representing those perspectives in a way that is effective or realistic or authentic is probably the best word.
Thank you, guys. I also wanted to just really quickly jump on here, and people should still feel free to add into the chat. But if there was sort of one major, like, oh my goodness, had we known this going into it, we would never have done this. Sort of one huge issue over the past year that you wish you had known before it started, and maybe one thing that was really surprising to you and unexpected about becoming a nonprofit that greatly benefited the work and the organization that you didn't anticipate.
Gosh, Jessica, do you want to reflect on one thing that you wish you'd known?
Yeah, I mean,
so many.
Yeah. I'm new to news and I'm new to this, so I wish I knew. Retroactively, I wish we had been able to spend more time on kind of how we were going to manage all our data. We still are kind of stuck in a bunch of different programs, and it makes it really hard for us to get a complete picture of a subscriber and a donor. So I would say taking the time and money, even if it means like lagging, to invest in a solution to keep all your data together and kind of cleaner would probably be my take there.
Yeah, you went just where I was going to go. I get all kinds of emails from folks. Some folks are fired up, right, as you would imagine, with respect to a story that we wrote or the way that we covered a story. And others are really grateful. And I write a monthly letter from the editor, which goes out to all subscribers. It just kind of like pulls back the curtain, right, on what we do. And every time I write, I get dozens of emails back in response, some with questions, some are notes of gratitude. Again, others are frustrated. And I save all of those notes, but I don't know what to do with them, by way of how they match with who who's a subscriber or who's a donor, and wouldn't it be helpful for us to know before we ask someone for support that, you know what, they don't like our coverage of the church, right? Or whatever that thing might be, or they love our coverage of open lands. And we just don't have that level of visibility in the data that I think we would like to. And I think that most organizations would like to. If you know of any good solutions or suggestions, by all means, please pass them on. I would say the thing that surprised me the most is how much people care when you explain to them who you are and what you're trying to do. I think that we don't ask for help and we don't tell our stories. And I'm sure that this has been a theme that has been expressed previously over the last couple of days. But, you know, just making that authentic appeal, because the reporting matters, because the journalism is going to have impact, is a lot easier than I thought it would be. And there are so many people that are in our corner. There are so many people that are in your corner. Just because you don't hear from them on a daily basis doesn't mean they're not there. They are. And when you have an opportunity to have a conversation with someone and to see how passionate they are, it can be really inspiring.
Wonderful. Thank you guys both so much. I do also love Jimmy's comment in the chat about messy data. I will say so that at the Institute, we're the nonprofit owner of the Inquirer, and our fundraising system and subscriber system are not integrated, also because we're two different organizations. And it's funny, like I like that I don't have to even think about the issue you have, because I can just say to people, oh, that's a whole different organization. You know, we can blame it on that, not the fact that the data is not integrated. So well, thank you so much, Jessica. And thank you, Lauren, for joining us today, for talking all about Salt Lake. It's wonderful work over the past year, all that you have learned. As I mentioned, we'll populate the Google Doc. This session will be recorded if anybody wants to reference it later. And we really appreciate you all being here. I wanted to just call attention to the fact that we have a keynote session from 4 to 5 Eastern time tonight or this afternoon. It's called Creating Community-Centered and Equitable Fundraising Practices with Jill Kunishima, the VP of Development at Cityside, Andrea Faye Hart, Operations and Organizational Development Specialist at MLK 50, and Andrew Herrera, Director of Growth Strategy at City Bureau. So I hope you can join us, you all can join us for that, and then for all of the programming tomorrow. And again, thank you, Lauren and Jessica, for your time today. Jessica, we're so happy you were still here and able to join us for the Q&A and in person. Great.
Thanks, everyone.